Hello everyone. In this special primer video, I'm going to be handing things over to Colin, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about strings in C and some of the functions that we have to operate on strings in C. So have a good time. Peace.
Okay, everybody, let's try this again. I've tried this a couple times now. First time my audio wasn't even on. A couple other times data was just not working for me trying to run these programs. So, hi everybody, my name is Colin, and I'm going to be going over C strings for you today. This is going to be a quick refresher, tutorial, whatever you need it to be, just kind of getting you the basics of what is a C string, and this is going to be helpful throughout your entire semester in CS 252. So to start off, let's look at what is a C string. So when I say a C string, it's actually just a one-dimensional array of characters terminated with a null character, which is a /0. That's important to note because in other programming languages, such as C++, another language you're going to be using this semester, there are a lot of big differences. So when I refer to a C string, and I'm going to be saying string a lot in this tutorial, or whatever you need it to be, it is actually just a one-dimensional array of characters. So let's look at some examples of how char arrays, or these strings, are created. So our first one is a predefined size of a char array. So we declare it as a char, greetings, and then we set it to arrays of size 6 using the brackets. With this, we were able to define it with each individual character at each of those individual indexes of that char array. Another way to create a string or a char array in C is by just defining an array with an undetermined amount of size and then setting it equal to a string. You'll notice here that we use quotation, double, not quotation marks. Is it quotation marks? I believe it is. I could go. It's still a bit early for me today. So, but we need to define it around with our word with these two quotation marks. Pardon me. So, kind of a good way to start learning is understanding how to use a C string and understand some of the functions that are around it. The first function, and a very important one, is knowing how to copy a string or this char array. So we are given the function STR Copy. So the function is used to copy the source string to a destination string. Again, I'll say that. We're going to copy the source string to the destination string. And when you look in the program, make sure you know which order it's in. So there are two versions of this function. The basic one is STR Copy. Two important notes here. The first one is my second bullet point, actually, is if the destination string is not large enough to hold the contents of the source string, you will get an error. So you need to make sure that your destination string is of the right size or is an undetermined size so you have enough room to copy it over. The second thing to understand is if the buffer size of the destination string is more than the source string, then it will end with a null terminated character. So STR Copy will always try to put a null terminated character for you automatically if there is enough room for it. The second version of this function, strncopy, is a little different. And going off of what I just said, is a little different on how the null terminated character works. So for strncopy, it will copy the first n bytes of the source string over to the destination string. So if I say we go to the example like our hello here, if I want to copy the first only 3 characters, I would use strncopy. Important note here, like I just said, is the null terminated character is a bit different. So if there are no null characters among the first n characters of the string, so let's say the first 3, 4, the string placed in the destination will not be null terminated. So that new string, that new char array, will not have that /0. So let's go into our examples. So let's start with our just normal STR Copy example. Two things here are two includes. We need to make sure, and you'll be seeing this in all our programs, that we'll have a string.h to do these functions. So we declare a main, and we declare our first string, which is a char, which we just call SRC, which is our source. And then we have a char destination, which is of size 14. 14 is much larger than what is our CS252, which is only 5 bytes, 6 if you call out the null character. We then run it on STR Copy, and this is what I told you to pay attention to. Destination first, then source. The source is being copied into the destination. So destination's first, source is second. Continued from here, we will then print out our copied string, and then the program will end. So let's go ahead and clear this and go ahead and run it. STR Copy Example. As you see, copied string CS252. Our destination string did not have anything in it, and we used STR Copy to copy CS252 into our destination. Let's move on to our second example, which is using strn copy. For this, we have our source string, which is again CS252. We have a destination string, which is size 6. 6 because we have 5 characters. 6 for me wanting to move the null terminated character over. We then use strn copy. Destination source 6 is going to copy over the first 6 characters of our source string. We are then going to do print out the copied string, and this, right above it, sorry, I forgot to do this, is an integer where we're going to be getting the length, str length, which is another thing we're going to be looking at a bit later, and it's going to print out the length for us. So let's go ahead and run this program. So strn copy example, and you can see that CS252 was again successfully copied over into our destination string, and we see that the length of the destination string is of size 5. Even though there is a null terminated character here, str length, which I will go over, does not count that. Okay, so now that we've looked at our 2 copy functions, let's move on to our STR Dupe. This is going to be another function that you're going to be using a lot throughout this semester. So this function returns a pointer to a null terminated byte string, is a duplicate of the string pointed to by the input string. This memory obtained is sorry, I've messed up the slide. This memory is obtained dynamically using malloc and can also be freed using the free function. So STR Dupe is that's why I'm going over it right after STR Copy. It's very similar, but this time it's going to be giving you a pointer instead of just copying over a contents to a new array. This one is actually going to be making a duplicate. So let's go ahead and hop over, take a look at our example. So STR Dupe. Don't save. It's fine. Okay, STR Dupe. So again, we have our 2 includes. It's going to be basically the same for all of them. First thing we have our source, which is again CS252. And then we have a target, which is this time a char star, instead of us saying it's a char array. And you'll go into this more this semester, kind of learning about how you can actually get information from your char stars, just like the array would normally with an index. But for this example, we're just doing a very simple STR Dupe. So we're going to call STR Dupe of the source. It's going to give us a new pointer, and that pointer will be a char star pointer that we set to our target, and then we will be able to print it out with a %s. So let's go ahead and run this example. This is our STR copy, STR Dupe example. We go ahead and run it, and we see that it was printed out. We don't have a new line character here, so you can see it right here. It is just CS252 right there. So that worked pretty well, and it was able to again take our source string and print a duplicate of it. So let's say we want to do some changes to it. Let me STR Dupe, find it really quick. Is this it? Didn't think I opened it. Let me really quick open it again. Okay, so it is open. Let's after this say source 2 is equal to let's say it's the character F. So if I change this over, and now I'm going to have to recompile my program, STR Dupe example -o STR Dupe example. Why is it mad? Oh, I've been writing so much in Python that I'm forgetting my semicolons. Okay, so STR Dupe example, and this time we can see even afterwards I changed the second index in source to an F character. We see that CS252 is still printed out normal. So this allows us to make a duplicate copy and put it somewhere else. And sometimes you're going to want to just do an STR dupe instead of an STR copy. It saves space, sometimes it saves time, sometimes you want a char star instead of a char array. Okay, let's move on. Enough about copying of strings. Let's move on to some more, just some different other things we can do with strings. So the next thing we're going to look at is strcat and strncat. So strncat function takes a string /char array and a second. And the second string is then appended to the string /char array of the first string, and the value of the string 1 is then returned. So strcat is for concatenation. We're going to be taking two strings, two char arrays, and putting them together. strcat does basically the same thing, but it takes n characters of this str2, so our second string, and appends it to our str1, and the value of str1 is returned. So instead of just taking all of our second string and putting it onto our first string, we're going to be taking only the first n characters of our second string onto our first string. So, and the final thing is the null terminating null character /0 of string 1 is replaced by the first character of string 2. The other thing to note is that the string does have a null terminate character at the end. So let's go ahead and hop over into Atom and take a look at our two examples. So str length, str top, str cat. Okay. We have two example programs, really quick to look at. Again, normal includes, and we have two char arrays. And this time we have them declared differently. We have our first char array, which is a size 20, and our second one, which doesn't have a declared size, and we declare afterwards. You can also see with an already declared size one, we can set a string to this string without having to do individual characters at each element. So moving on, we can then do a printf, and we actually do our strcat right in our printf section. And we're going to be taking our string 1 and putting it in, string 2 and concatenating it onto string 1. So even though this is size 20, we still have a null character here. So the question is going to be, are we going to have like a bunch of empty spaces, or is our null character going to be right where we set it at? And that's a good question, but it's going to be right at the end where your normal null character would be. And as said in the slides, this will then start at that null character. So let's go ahead and run the program. This is strcat example, and we can see that it prints hello world just normally, even though we have a space here, so it puts the null character right after this, and it starts world right at that null character. Okay, let's move on to our next example, which is strncat. So this time we have three strings, char arrays, hello, world, and test. And we are going to be taking string 3, which is test, and world, and going to be doing only the first 6 characters of string 2 into string 3, concatenating them together. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it should be these first 6 characters, leaving out the exclamation marks and that end space character. So let's do strn cat this time, and we can see that just like we thought, it only did test world, and then we get our new line character from the printf statement. So it did not carry over the extra exclamation marks or the space afterwards. Okay, let's move on to our next function, which is STR Compare and STRN Compare. It will pass 2 strings as parameters to the function and compare both the string characters by character till the null character, so /0. It's going to compare each character, and if they're the same, it will move on to the next one. When the first character of string 1 doesn't match that of string 2, it will return a value that is greater than or less than 0, depending on the ASCII value. So if the value of string 1 is greater than string 2, then it will return a value greater than 0. If the value of string 1 is less than string 2, then it will return a value less than 0. So you have to, this is a good time to pull up an ASCII table. And if you've never seen an ASCII table, let me pull one up really quick. Oh, well, I'll keep talking as my Google Chrome slowly opens. It's going to be using the ASCII values. So it's good and handy if you are doing STR Compare to make sure that if you're printing out, you want to know if it's greater than, less than 0. You can actually find out what the characters are. And that's something C is a lot you're going to have to use to figure out stuff using your ASCII values. So the difference with strn compare is it will compare only up to the first n characters of the char of the strings. Oh, is Chrome open? Yes, there it is on my second monitor. And I'll pull up the ASCII table. So for strn compare, we're only going to compare up to the first n number of characters of the string. So if I only want to compare up to character 4, let's say, everything afterwards could be completely different. But we wanted to compare those first 4 characters to see if they're the same. So you can pull up that ASCII table. ASCII table. It's coming up slowly. Let me zoom in on it. Okay, so our ASCII table right here. So we can see that for our different characters, if the character is less than, then we know that it's a value for the ASCII is going to be somewhere less than that character. If it's greater than, then that means the character is most likely higher than. And it will print out a number corresponding to how far away it is. Okay, so those are our ASCII values. So let's hop into our program. Let's do, this is STR Compare. So let's take a look at STR Compare. We have our 2 strings here, CS252 with 2 exclamation points, and CS252. We will do a compare of the 2 strings, and it will either say if it's equal to, it's greater than, it says it's, or it's greater than twice, because I don't think I'm doing all the checks here, but we will quickly run this program. I think I can. Let me rephrase myself. It's going to do STR compare, and we're going to get an int that's returned. This int will allow us to check if it's equal to 0. We know that it's the 2 strings are the same. If else result 2 is greater than 0, then we know str1 is greater than string. This would be string 1, and then printf. Sorry, not string 1. It's greater than string 2. Else string 2 is greater than string 1. So on the slide, I confused myself there. I had it. This basically the same thing, but I said greater than twice there. On the slides, I said less than. So it's the same thing, obviously, but just thinking about it in 2 different ways. So the first way is thinking that string 1 is greater than string 2, and string 1 is then less than string 2. Or you can say string 2 is greater than string 1. So it's the same phrase. I even confused myself there, so I hope that clarifies it for you. So let's go ahead and run the program. So this is STR Compare example, and we can see that string 1 is greater than string 2 because we see that when we're comparing string 1 to string 2, we see that there's an exclamation point here and there's nothing here. So this is going to think this is a, if I pull back up that ASCII table, which I closed, if I pull back up that ASCII table, ASCII table for C. Yeah, okay, so if I pull back up that ASCII table, we can see that the exclamation point is much higher than the null character. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next version of this, which is STR Compare. This time we still have the same 2 strings, but we're only going to compare the first 4 characters. So this time, it should tell us that the strings are equal to each other. So let's go ahead and run the program. STR N compare, and we will see that it is returns is equal to, and our value is 0 because they are equal to each other. Even though these 2 strings are not the same, we only compared the first 4 characters of each, and it did the comparison for us. So STR Compare is really good. Normally, you would have to do this through a for loop on your own, but this is a built-in function for you that you don't need to go through a for loop to do all this checks. Okay, let's move on to, we only got 3 left. So STR length, we kind of already touched on. I'm going to quick show this example, run through this really quick. But STR length is just a function that calculates the length of a given string. It doesn't count null characters, like I said before. So let's do really quick, pull up an STR length example. This time I set my string a bit differently. We set it with each individual character. So throughout this tutorial, and you'll also have availability to this code, you can see that there's a bunch of different ways to do this. And I pulled this one for the Geeks from the Geeks for Geeks website, as this is such a simple example. So we set each character, Geeks, and then we just print the length with STR length. And this time we set the character, the string again the same way, and then we print it out with the length of the string. And you'll be able to see that they will print out to be basically the exact same. Well, I mean, they are the exact same. So let's run str length example. Length of the string is 5. Length of the string is 5. Gotta love Geeks for Geeks not doing new line characters, but yes, both lengths of the strings are 5, even with the different declarations of how the strings are done. Probably should have started with that one first, and now with hindsight, but that's fine. Let's move on to str. So this function takes 2 strings, string 1 and string 2 as an argument, and finds the first occurrence of the substring, string 2, in string 1. So it's going to be kind of similar to what STR Compare does, but instead of doing the whole string, we're looking for a small portion somewhere in the string, and it has to be exact copy of that substring. So let's just hop right into the example. STR. So we're going to be, we have CS252 is CS252, and then we have our second string, which is CS252, and we have a pointer P. So what I didn't go over in the slide really quick is it returns the first occurrence of the character. So it's going to return a char pointer to where that is in the memory. So if we find the first occurrence, it will find it of string 2 in string 1. So it will, if P does exist, we're going to then print it out, string found, and print out the first occurrence of string 1 of P in CS252. And then finally, if it doesn't find anything, it will print out string not found. So let's go ahead and run this really quick. STR example. We can see here that is string found. First occurrence of string CS252 is CS252. It finds it is able to then tell us to CS252 is the string we're looking for, and then tells us that first occurrence is right at the beginning, so it's the entirety of the string is then put in for us. STR is not going to be a function that you use a ton. I usually use STR Compare a lot more, but this function does allow, if you're looking for, say, a substring, something specific in it. So let's say you're looking for a backslash, or you're looking for commas. This is a really good way to be able to find the different commas. And there's another function that I don't have here, but it's STR and this will be able to say, oh, I want to start looking at this spot and then continue onward. So if you can find each spot, you're able to continue and break down your string into different parts and just slowly break apart. It's very helpful. Okay, so let's go on to our last helper function that we're going to look at for char arrays or C strings. And this is STR talk, used for splitting apart using a delimiter. So what I just explained for STR, you can do with STR talk. Don't even need it for what I STR for what I said. So this can be able to split apart a string or a char array, the same thing, with different delimiters. So let's say a comma, a semicolon, a dash, whatever you want to break it apart with. And it parses over the string / char array. So let's, again, hop on over, take a look at an example. And we can see in this example, we have our string CS252-is-awesome. We see then that our token is a dash character, and we run STR talk on it, and it will be able to give us an array, it will give us back the tokens of our broken apart, the string. And that's important to know that it's going to return a char star to us. So then we're going to do a quick while loop, and we're going to print out all the tokens. So token is not equal to null, printf token. Token is this equal to str null, comma, dash. So we're going to then do we're going to run str talk one more time on a null thing. So this is not even read it. It just kind of ends our loop for us. So I'm going to run this for us really quick. STR talk example, and we can see that it will then, with the while loop, be able to go through, print out each of it, and then CS252 is awesome. Yes. So the while loop allows us to print out each of those things. And again, it broke it apart with our delimiters and made them each their own separate string or char array for us, which is this char star. Again, and you'll be going over that more later in this semester, kind of talking more about how memory works, and especially on your first project, being more focused on malloc, understanding how memory works, stuff like that. You're going to a lot of these C functions, a lot of this stuff is going to be helpful, just kind of to understand also how memory works. So if you understand memory, you're going to be able to understand a lot of how a char array works. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, make sure to post them on Piazza, or you can contact any of the TAs. They can definitely help you with some of, if you're struggling or having any problems understanding C strings. Again, this was just supposed to be a quick tutorial, something to get you caught up maybe, or just a quick refresher if you're kind of forgetting how things are working for C strings. Moving on, the next video should be about C++ strings, and also looking at how to convert C++ strings back to C strings. And it's important and really helpful because there are times when you need C++ strings, but there's also a lot of times where you need just a normal C string, which is just a char array, and you want those individual, being able to go to those individual points in that string a bit easier. So I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions, make sure to post them on Piazza.